What's up YouTube, it's Steve from 8-Bit Panda here, and today we're going to be installing TeamSpeak 3 onto a CentOS 7 box. Okay, well the first thing that we're going to do is jump onto our CentOS box with SSH. So now that we've logged in, we'll check to make sure that our CentOS box is fully up to date. Alright, so our VM's now updated. We'll need to install a few tools first that will assist with our deployment. So first we need wget. We also need Perl, we need NetTools, mariadb, mariadb server, and that's it. Just do -s to get all the updates, and now that those updates have installed, we'll create a new user that we'll use for our TeamSpeak service to run under. Do user add ts3 user. You can make the username whatever you want, just make sure you update anything throughout this tutorial from ts3 user to whatever you use for your username. Set a password. And then we want to start mariadb. systemctl start mariadb, and we also want it so that every time the server reboots, mariadb automatically starts up, so we'll do that now. So if you've not used mariadb before, it works nearly exactly the same as MySQL. It's just a newer, updated version, and it's a separate branch off of MySQL. So we'll do a secure installation. First it's none, then you set your password. Now that we've set our password, we'll remove the anonymous user, we'll disable root login remotely, we'll remove the test databases, and we'll reload the privileges. So now mariadb is nice and secure, we'll do mysql-u root-p, and that will allow us to log in to the mariadb. Enter the password that we created earlier, and then you should get a command prompt like this, which means you're in mariadb. I'm now going to create a database that we can use for TS3. And we're currently granting permissions to our TS3 user, basically a new user that's going to be created for the database on localhost. And then we're going to type our password in here. We'll flush the privileges, and then we can exit mariadb. That's everything done in mariadb now. Now that we've done that, what I'm going to do is create a service script for TS3. This is available in the link in my description through my blog online. It's just easier than having to type it all out. So if you vi into user lib systemd system, and then call it ts3 server.service. Now I've copied this text off of my blog. You can get to the link which is in the description down below, and basically it's quite self-explanatory. All it does is it runs a service so that if your server reboots it will always start up again, and it will run the service under the ts3 user that we created earlier. So a few simple things it checks: it makes sure the network's up and running first, and then when it starts it runs with the ini files, and it also makes sure that when it stops correctly, and it checks for the PID file throughout to make sure that it's all running as expected. So we'll quit out of that now that we've created that file. So now what we're going to do is just su onto our ts3 user. And once we're on there, we will download the ts3 files and extract all of those. So cd, so that we go into our directory, and then we'll make a directory called bin, cd into bin, and then we'll do a wget basically onto the latest download files from the TeamSpeak website. If you just get that from their website, you should be able to see on there the latest version. And there we go, paste that into there and off we go. We will just extract the file, -xvf, and then there's our file. So that's now extracted, and we're going to move it into a different file name. And just call it TeamSpeak 3. And we'll cd into our TeamSpeak 3 folder. Now that we're in our TeamSpeak 3 directory, we need to create a file called ts3server.ini. And again, if you go onto my blog, you can copy the contents for this file and paste them in. In here we've got machine ID, so that's just the ID of this particular TeamSpeak server. It's going to be 1. The port that we're using for the voice, which by default is 9987, but you can change this to whatever you want. One thing to bear in mind though, if you do change that, then whenever anyone connects up to your server, they'll have to specify the port. An IP address, you can restrict it to an IP if you want to, but I've heard people in the past have had problems with doing this. The file transfer port, which we'll be opening up later on the firewall, query port, and then here we've got our database plugins that we'll be loading. So for this tutorial we'll be using mariadb as we've already set it up. We've got an ini file for mariadb that we'll be doing shortly, where the SQL will be stored, where the database files will be created, log file paths, log commands, and how long to keep clients for in the database, whether to append the log, and skip brute force checks. So we'll save this file and come out of it, and now we'll create our ts3 mariadb file. So vi ts3 db_mariadb.ini, and again copy these off of my website, and we'll highlight that and copy it and paste it into here. So in here we need to create these are the password, username and password that we've used for our database. Now that we've created that file, we can start the server for the first time and copy all of the important information that it loads onto the screen. So ts3 server _start script .sh, and then type start. So when it loads up, you'll get your privilege key and server query keys. If you just copy this into Notepad, there is a way that you can reset them. There's another article on my blog which I've linked in the description. If you do lose your privilege key, you can get it back. Cancel that and just type stop. just to make sure that the TeamSpeak server is stopped properly. Now we'll SU back into root. We're going to enable the plugin library, enable the service and start the service. So first off, cd into redist, and then what we're going to do is copy the libmariadb.so.2 file into lib64 and make sure it's got the same name .so.2. Now that we've copied that, we need to load some of the MariaDB dependent files. So /home /your user bin TeamSpeak3 and then lib ts3db _ mariadb.so. You press enter and you should notice that everything loads here. You might get errors next to this. If you do, then you've done something wrong. Just make sure you've gone through all of the steps prior to make sure that this works. And now we're going to chmod -x on our service file just to make sure that the operating system can execute the service. systemd system and ts3 server. Type systemctl enable ts3 server. This will enable the service and make sure that every time that the server's rebooted, the service will start. Systemctl start ts3 server, and that will just start our service now for us so that we can carry on straight away. So that's everything for our TS3 server sorted now. The only thing that we need to do is add rules into our firewall, and once we've done that we can then connect up and use our privilege key. So firewall-cmd --zone equals public. Unless you've got something different set up, yours will be the same. And then we add port 9987 as UDP and then put permanent on the end. Press enter. So that's now added a new firewall rule for 9987, which will allow the voice and the TS3 client to connect. We also can add the server query port and the file transfer port. Only add these if you want people to be able to transfer files onto the server via TeamSpeak, and if you want people to be able to access the TeamSpeak server query commands. So I want people to be able to do that, so I'm going to do that now. And the command is the same as before, but the port is 10011 and it's TCP. And then for file transfer, the port is 30033 and that's also TCP. Press enter and that's it loaded into our firewall. So if you now do firewall-cmd reload, and that will reload those rules into the firewall so that those ports are now open. Now that we've got TeamSpeak installed, we've opened up our firewall, we should be able to connect to the server. So we'll just load up the client, type in our server IP, our nickname and click connect. When you first connect, it should ask you for a privilege key which you copied earlier, and you can paste that in, click OK, and it should say privilege key successfully used, and as soon as you've got that on there you should be able to edit the virtual server name, apply, and you'll see there it's updated. So now you can go on to configuring the rest of your TeamSpeak 3 server, and if your VM reboots or anything like that, your CentOS server reboots, your service will start again without having to worry about it, and your users will have less interruption than they would have done previously. Thanks for watching this video, hopefully it's been helpful for you. If it has, please hit that like and subscribe button. If it hasn't, you know where the dislike button is. Thanks a lot, see you soon.